Okay, then may we now start our meeting, and may I request everyone to please turn on your camera. Thank you, Mar. Dayan, thank you. And the others, please. Okay. So may we have then our opening prayer, and may we have Jerome to lead us the opening prayer. Jerome, please.
Wait, wait lang po, sir.
Okay.
So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give
Give
us
us
today
our daily bread.
bread and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Jerome, for uh, the beautiful Lord's Prayer. And of course, welcome everyone for our third, no? This is our third video conference for the school year. And thank you for keeping, okay, yourself present in our video conferences. Yeah. Before that, I would like to congratulate everyone for taking the quiz, the first quiz for this course. And I'm really happy with the result because I think none from the class, okay, got a failing grade or failing score, should I say. All of you, all of those who took the quiz, the first quiz, okay, earned a passing score, actually a considerably good score in the exam. And of course, we congratulate Mar Mora and Jennifer Dudin for perfecting, okay, the first quiz. Congratulations. Was it, yeah, Jennifer and Mar perfected the first quiz. And well, I also love students perfecting the quiz, but but of course, I have also to give credit for those who really passed. Whether you passed the exam, should I say, the quiz or not, at least you are learning, okay, from the quiz you had experienced. Okay, so how did you find the quiz? How did you find the quiz? Anyone? Okay, no one's answering my question. Anyway, yeah, we will process some of the items because I think there were some concerns as regards their response in the fill in the blanks, okay, type of test. Any concern as regards the questions or your answer in the fill in the blanks portion of the quiz? Um, if you can't make use of your microphone in raising your concern as regards to the quiz, please make use of the chat box. Please take note that we are doing a learning conversation. We are not yet in the presentation of the lesson, so please just put on your camera. Thank you, Kathleen, for putting on your camera. Any concern? Yeah, before we proceed to lesson 2 of the course, huwag kayong mahiya na sabihin ang inyong mga katanungan at ang inyong mga nais, okay, ipaalam sa klase. Of course, except for Mar and Jennifer because they perfected the quiz, then that would mean that they really reviewed well, no? They really prepared well. Okay, though all of you prepared, no? All of you certainly prepared for the quiz, but of course, not all our preparations may be right or may be appropriate. It may just happen that the preparation made by Mar and Jennifer, okay, are enough to get, okay, a perfect score for the quiz. Any concern? I'm giving you the floor. I'm giving you the opportunity to raise your concern on the quiz. How did you find it? Is it too difficult? Is it too easy? Is it not too difficult and not too easy? Maybe it's just enough to measure your understanding of the lesson we discussed. Does your silence mean that we have to proceed to our discussion now? Huh? No more bargaining of your score? You might want to bargain that your answer, particularly in the fill in the blanks, may be considered for the meantime. No more bargaining?
Sir?
Sir,
Yes.
yun po.
Sure.
O, sige.
Sir?
Sino mauuna? You raise your hand. I'll take note of it. You raise your hand. You raise your hand using the platform, not your hand there. Okay, si Joshua nag-raise ang hand niya. Sige. Joshua, ikaw na lang muna. Sige. Then followed by Dayan later. Joshua, any concern?
Sir, dun po sa skills and competencies ba yun, sir?
Okay.
Sa
What was your answer?
singular kasi, sir. Skill, sir. Walang S. Pwede po ba consider, sir?
Okay, skill lang ang sagot mo. Pero ang tamang sagot ay skills.
Yes, sir.
So you answered, okay, sinugutan mo is singular siya na dapat plural. Okay, sige.
Yes po, sir.
We'll consider that for the meantime. Sige. We'll consider that, but next time, you also have, in answering fill in the blanks question, you have to look at the grammatical structure of the statement before you put your answer. Okay? For the meantime, I'll consider that. Okay?
Yes.
Any more? Yes,
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Daphne muna, si Daphne muna. Daphne? Okay.
Sir,
Daphne,
akin din yung experiences ang nalagay ko, sir, is experience. Okay lang ba yun, sir?
yeah, consider natin yun. Kaya naman kay
Sir,
Daphne.
pati yung ongoing. May
Yeah,
dash.
the correct ongoing is a one sentence. Okay, it should be no dash. Okay, so ongoing na diretso lang. But for the meantime, we'll consider that. Okay, pero
Yes, sir.
next time, you should have learned from that experience. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any
Thank you,
more?
sir.
Sir?
Ay,
Yes, Jennifer.
Sir, the same concern din po.
Jennifer.
Dun po sa answer, sa
Yes,
teacher.
yan.
Yung sir,
Ah,
teacher po yung tamang sagot, pero yung sagot ko po dun is teachers. Then yung...
teachers. Ba, perfect mo ang exam?
Sir, hindi. Hindi po.
Hindi mo perfect?
Quiz, sir?
Chuta? Oh, quiz.
No, sir.
Sabit lang,
Hindi
check
ko
mo.
po perfect. Actually, yun po
Si
yung
Mora,
mali ko.
naka-perfect. Ay, so,
Hello, sir.
Oh,
Sir?
So, sige, jet ko na.
you got a perfect score. Yeah, based on my records, siguro kasi rounded siya. Perfect score ka, Jennifer. But we will consider yung teachers. Okay?
Ay,
Any more
sige.
yan?
Sir, yung outcomes po.
Outcomes. Ano nilagay mo?
Sir, outcome based po yung nilagay ko. Ang sagot po is outcomes based.
Okay, sige. Ang nilagay mo ay outcome-based. Ang sagot mo is
Yes.
outcomes. Ang tamang sagot ay outcomes-based.
Sir. Pati din po yung teacher, sir.
Okay, sige.
Mali ko rin.
Sige.
Sir, pati yung ongoing, mali ko.
O, sige. Kasi consider natin lahat ng mga nabanggit na. Okay, Dian.
Sir, may other term for for input-based education.
Yes, content-based is the other term.
Sir, paulit po?
Content-based is the other term. Did you write content-based?
Yes, sir. Kaso walang education po.
Content-based lang.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. We'll consider that.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Kasi mga spelling lang naman. O sige, sino pa nagtataas ng kamay?
Sir, si
Yes.
concern po, yung sir, input-based lang din po yung nakalagay, hindi input-based education.
Okay, so wala lang education.
Yes, sir.
Sige, we'll check that.
Thank you, sir.
Sige. Okay then, so any more concern? Now, for the meantime, I'll allow that. But next time, please be very careful in the items that you put as a response to fill in the blank questions. Okay? We still have one, no? Who's that? A while back?
Hello, sir.
Yes, Mar.
Yeah, you told me na perfect ko, but my score is 18. So kung perfect ko, na-consider mo yung chat ko sa'yo ng item 1 and 12. Yung item 1 ko, input-based ang nilagay ko. Yung isa naman, ongoing na may dash.
Yeah, that may
So,
be considered.
that's consideration.
I still have to check it because the quiz, sorry, perfect ba niya? Saglit, mali ata nakita ko. Sorry. The perfect pala is yung writing learning outcomes. Sorry. The perfect one is Dulin and Mar in the writing learning outcomes. Tama? Okay, you got perfect score there. Sa quiz pala, sorry. I have to refer again. Parang mali ang ano ko.
Yeah, po. Sa quiz, mayroon akong dalawang.
Yeah, sa quiz is, sige, i-check natin later kung sino ang highest. But anyway, we'll look into those. Ang perfect pala ni Dulin at saka ni Mar doon sa writing learning outcomes kasi they really have crafted good outcomes. Okay? Kaya nakatulong yung pinos ni Mardin na helpful micro-teaching tool. Micro-teaching ang tawag doon yung mga videos, yung mga ibang materials na short to discuss a certain lesson. Those are called micro-teaching materials or micro-learning materials. Okay? Princess, any concern?
Ay, same din po kay Kuya Mar. May dash yung ongoing ko.
Sige. But next time, walang dash, ah?
Okay po.
Dash. We will consider everything that you said. If I just have understood it right, you made mention of skill, experience, ongoing with dash, teacher, outcome-based, and content-based, input-based without education. Okay, so those are the things that we will be considering, okay, in the rechecking of your papers. I hope that I could be able to recheck it tonight so that you would be able to know your final score. Okay, any more? Any more concern?
Sir, yung akin po.
Ano yung iyo?
Baka pwede po yung may meaningful learning and experience po.
Meaning,
Kasi learning experience lang po yung nailagay ko po may meaningful po.
yeah, hindi pwede yun. Kasi what qualifies the kind of learning we have in outcomes-based education should be meaningful. Magkaiba kasi learning experience and meaningful learning experience. The student may have a learning experience, but it does not necessarily mean that it's meaningful, that it's relevant. Okay? So, yung magkaibang kapatid.
Apa.
Okay, any more concern? No more. So, meaning to say, we are now ready to proceed to the second part or second chapter of our course. Okay, so allow me then to share my screen for the presentation of the lesson. So I hope you help yourself listen to the lecture. Then we will pause later after 10 slides, maybe, or 5 slides, we will pause for the question and answer portion. Just have to wait. The PowerPoint is not responding. Okay, it's responding now. Okay. So we now proceed to the lesson 2 of our discussion on assessment of learning 1. And lesson 2 is about determining progress towards the attainment of learning outcomes. Please take note that in the first lesson or lesson 1, okay, we have clarified how learning outcomes are to be drafted, are to be created, okay, out from our discussion as regards outcomes-based education. We said that outcomes-based education's implementation in the classroom teaching and learning experience, it's about crafting the institutional learning outcomes first. And from the institutional outcomes, we do our program learning outcomes. And from our program learning outcomes, we craft or we create our course learning outcomes. And out from the course learning outcomes, we have learning outcomes for each lesson under each course or under each subject. And of course, your activity, okay, your activity under your activity or worksheet, which you have completed for lesson 1, is about writing learning outcomes based on the given learning objectives. And yeah, please consider the comments I have put, okay, when I check your output for that activity, because those comments will help you later, okay, to understand what or how should learning outcomes be well crafted. Because later on, as we go through with our discussion, you will still be asked to create learning outcomes. You will still be asked to I will still be asked to draft your learning outcomes, okay, particularly under each level of each domain of learning. Maybe just have to review the course content, performance-based activities, and assessment and learning activities under this lesson on determining progress towards the attainment of learning outcomes. Our intended learning outcomes is for you to distinguish among measurement, assessment, and evaluation. How do we differentiate these three important concepts in the teaching and learning process? Is measurement different from assessment? Is assessment different from evaluation? Is evaluation different from measurement? And vice versa. And at the same time, you are expected to explain the various approaches to assessment. We will be discussing about the different forms of assessment. For example, we have diagnostic assessment, interim assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment, and other forms of assessment. And as a result of, as a tangible evidence of your learning or understanding of this lesson, you would be asked later to complete a worksheet for you to create an assessment timeline for a select unit in one's field of study. The following activities we'll be doing, okay, we do video conferencing, we do brainstorming, because you would later be asked to make use of the discussion board of the new LMS for you to share your idea as regards the lesson. I think the activity is already given. You will be learning from a video clip. That is a self-independent study, meaning to say you just have to watch the videos being provided in the LMS as regards this lesson. And of course, you do worksheet completion. We are pertaining here to the timeline that you will be creating. And of course, you have a quiz before we proceed to a quiz as a form of summative assessment to culminate your understanding on lesson 2. So those are the things that you have to expect doing, okay, for this part of the course. Now we proceed to distinguishing these 4 important concepts: test and non-test. What do we mean by test and non-test? With the keyword gathering information about learners. Then after that, we also define measurement with the key idea, quantifying test results. Then we have assessment with the key idea, making decisions about student learning. And lastly, about evaluation, determining the changes in the learner. So please take note of the keywords, because these keywords will be expounded, okay, as we are to discuss this part of the lesson, and that these keywords would give us a hint, okay, of the differences of these key concepts or key terms in assessment of learning 1. Now, please take note that there's a changing views or changing perspectives in the use of educational assessment, okay? And these changing views, these evolving perspectives are the result of the rising demand for an outcomes-based evaluation. When outcomes-based evaluation was proposed and was adopted by most schools, this was also the time that the perspective or educators' understanding of what assessment is has also evolved or has also changed. And the change of the definition or perspective as regards educational assessment, okay, was because of the belief that in the contemporary education or contemporary teaching and learning, all activities have to be student or learner centered. So again, okay, the main point here of the change in the views or perspectives as regards assessment was because of the key characteristic of outcomes-based education, that everything that will take place inside the classroom, whether it's a formal learning space or informal learning space, have to be always, okay, centered have to be always centered on the student or on learners. Now, with the changing perspective as regards assessment, this is now the challenge to teachers. That teachers must objectively see that their students concretely manifests the expected outcomes of instruction. So because we said that teaching and learning has to start at the end in mind, okay, has to start with the identification or clear articulation of what we expect our learners do, of what we expect our learners perform or our learners exemplify or show, then we should be able to objectively see, okay, that these outcomes are clearly or tangibly or concretely manifested by our students. Because we said that the ultimate measure of teaching in an outcomes-based education would always be the ability of the students to show that indeed they have achieved or they have attained the learning outcome set for them. The second one is to discover the noble qualities of students. So
Sir,
what yes,
sir, hindi po lumilipat yung slide.
I'm sorry. Okay, that's that. But I have shared the whole screen, sorry. Okay, sige. Thank you for reminding me of that. It should be the entire screen. Okay. Pero meron pa akong i-update. Yeah. So as a result of the outcomes-based education, which resulted to the changing or evolving concepts or perspectives as regards assessment, here are now the challenges that teachers must look into. As I've said a while back, that teachers must objectively see that their students concretely manifest the expected outcomes of instruction. So meaning to say, it is our duty then as a teacher using outcomes-based education that our students, okay, could clearly show, could tangibly manifest, okay, the outcomes that we have crafted for them prior giving them all the learning experiences. Then second one is to discover the noble qualities of students. Why do we need to do this? Because as we have said, in the outcomes-based education, okay, in the outcomes-based education, we have that belief of, that belief, should I say, of inclusivity. That everyone in class has the ability to learn. And because everyone has the ability to learn, it is a must for us teachers adopting outcomes-based education to know the qualities of each of our students. Because it's only through knowing their qualities that we could be able to design appropriate learning experiences, appropriate teaching activities for our students to meet the learning outcomes or intended learning outcomes. That is what we mean by practicing inclusivity when we do teaching and learning process in our respective classrooms. And third, to consider the context, should I say, of outcomes-based evaluation. Okay, what is the context of outcomes-based evaluation? That would mean that the evaluation, the way we evaluate our students' performance, our learners' performance in our class, our learners' learning or academic success should be the attainment of the learning outcomes. That is what we mean by outcomes-based evaluation. Okay? And when we say context, we also check into it that the way we evaluate our students, okay, should always be based on their performance, on the context, based on the context of their performance, and not of the others' context, not of their classmates' context. Anong ibig kong sabihin? na yung pamamaraan ng ating pagsusuri, evaluation is pagsusuri, ng pagsusuri doon sa estadong pagkatuto ng mga mag-aaral natin ay dapat nakabase doon sa kanilang performance, doon sa kanilang talagang ginagawa sa klase, at yung effort nila kung paano nila ginawa ang mga ito sa klase, hindi iyong ibabatay natin doon sa performance ng kanilang mga classmates. This is what we mean by outcomes-based evaluation. Okay? Now, what are the recent concepts of assessment and evaluation? There is a concept as regards the learning domains, that in the outcomes-based education, the teacher is expected to be fully conversant with the measurement and assessment procedures that underpin testing in the 3 domains of learning. We have the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. There are 2 important things that we have to consider under this statement or in this statement. First, the teacher has to be fully conversant. What do we mean by this? That when we measure, that when we assess or evaluate our students' performance in class, then our criteria, thus the different success indicators, have to be clearly explained to our students. And that the way we score them, the way we evaluate them, the way we assess their performance has to be always transparent. Okay? And at the same time, the evaluation and the assessment of a student's performance, has to target the 3 domains of learning for the whole person development or education of our students. The cognitive pertaining to their knowledge, the affective pertaining to their emotions, attitudes, and the psychomotor which pertains to their skills. Okay, that's the first one. And the second concept or the second recent concept as regards assessment are about the assessment tools we use. The concept of assessment is more appropriate than measurement because it requires the use of all means, methods, and approaches to understand students' scholastic or academic performance. So I mean to say, we should not only make use of a single assessment or a single measurement tool to assess our students' academic performance, but we have to make use of varied evidences of learning so that we could see the whole picture of how our students are performing in our respective classes. Okay? Kaya nga sinasabi ko noon sa inyo, magtaka kayo, ewan ko nasabi ko, pero parang nabanggit ko, pahapyaw, sinasabi ko na magtaka kayo kung ang mga guro ninyo ay isang activity lang ang pinagawa niya sa klase, tapos meron kayong grade kaagad-agad. Because one assessment activity or one assessment tasks is not enough, to show the whole picture of how a student is performing in a class. Kaya magpasalamat kayo kapag si teacher ay nagbibigay ng maraming assessment activities, nagbibigay ng maraming learning activities, because that is one way that the teachers are being transparent, or that the teachers are getting enough information, enough data, as regards your academic performance or your scholastic performance. Okay? Now, before we continue, before we proceed to the definition of test and non-test, may we have a question and answer portion of our conference. Please turn on your camera if you do have questions. Hello? Anyone?
Sir?
Yes, Razlin.
Sir, ano na po ulit yung
Yung sa explanation ng sa part ng sa may conversant teacher, sir.
Yeah. Okay. That the teacher has to be fully conversant as regards the assessment, okay, or evaluation practices. That would mean, Razlin, that we have to be very clear when it comes to the success criteria or success indicators that we will be using to assess or to measure our students' understanding in class. When when we say success indicators, we pertain to the rubrics that we use, okay, to assign score to students' output or learning tasks. Okay? And as much as possible, the way we grade them has to be always transparent. Okay? That they would know how did you grade them. They know what to grade in their learning output. They should also be aware of the reason why they have to do the assessment task that we ask them to do. That is what we mean by being fully conversant as regards our assessment practices. Okay? For example, Razlin, before I ask you to do a certain learning task, I have given you the success indicators or the rubric on how I am to check, okay, your output, and that is being fully conversant as regards the way you assess your students' learning. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any more? No more? Okay, so thank you, Razlin, for sharing your concern, for asking that good question. That is also a good concept. Okay, that's a very important concept that each one of you should remember. Being fully conversant of our assessment practices, especially for our students. Okay, so maybe now continue our discussion. We now proceed to tests and non-tests, with the key idea, gathering information about learners. So first we define what is a test. A test is used to indirectly measure the intangible aspects of a student's life and to gather information about students' learning progress. What do you mean by intangible aspects of student life, of student learning? Okay, their perspectives, how they understand the key concepts, the key theories in our discussion, how can they be able to explain, okay, the important ideas that we have presented in class. And we need to do that. We need to measure their understanding, emotions. These are all intangible aspects of learning, okay, for us to check their learning progress. Now, the scores gathered through the use of this device must be analyzed and evaluated. Okay. So meaning to say, examples of tests include your summative assessment, your quizzes, your major examinations, your unit tests, and other activities being scored by the teacher. Aside from that, a test can be influenced by some factors that contribute to errors in gathering valid and reliable information. This phenomenon is called a measurement error. Okay, what do we mean by measurement error? For example, you ask a student to complete a quiz, okay, for you to measure their learning progress. But unfortunately, some questions in the quiz were not discussed in class. So that's a measurement error, because you cannot measure something which you did not input or which you did not teach to your students. Okay? Kaya nga hindi maganda na nagpapatest ka, tapos yung laman ng test mo ay wala dun sa talakayan, then that may certainly bring to this phenomenon called as measurement error. Okay? There is a measurement error if, okay, if, For example, that these are the several reasons of measurement error. First, the test does not equally measure the skills of the learners. For example, the test will only measure the lower order thinking skills. Then that may lead to a measurement error. So, I mean to say, the test has to equally represent the items in a test have to equally represent the different skills, from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. Second, the coverage of the test, not all the concepts cited in the test or the test items are being taught by the teacher. Again, that would lead to a measurement error. Also, the types of tests that we ask our learners to. Okay, the type of test may not be appropriate for the kind of learning content being discussed in class, may also lead to measurement error. So these are the three common factors or reasons that may lead to measurement error when we are to make use of a test to measure our students' learning progress. Please take note that the preparation of a test, administration, and interpretation should critically be analyzed. So I mean to say, the purpose why we do tests is to check whether our students have learned something or fully understood the lesson or not. Because if the result would say otherwise, then that would mean that we might need another learning opportunity for our students to relearn the learning content, to relearn the material. Okay, for example, kaya I was glad, no, when you did the quiz, and most of you, I think all of you, okay, passed the quiz or got a good score in the quiz, then that would also mean that you have understood the lesson being presented in class. Because if most of you failed or all of you failed the quiz, then that would mean that the strategy I used to explain the lesson or the activities you completed in the lesson may not be helpful. Okay, may not be helpful will not be helpful for you to be able to earn a good score in the said quiz. Okay, so I mean to say, the result of any test has to be interpreted so that, has to be interpreted and at the same time should be critically analyzed so that the teacher would know whether to offer another learning opportunity or to move to the new lesson or not. Okay, so that's the use of having a test. Now, teachers are concerned that test users often uncritically accept test scores. This concerned them for three reasons, as Kubizin and Borich in 2000 puts it. So may mga teachers na concern that some test users or examinees of the said test may not accept the test scores, their test scores. And according to a research, okay, by Kubizin and that of Borich, okay, they have provided three reasons why some students would usually not accept the test scores they have earned in a certain test. First, tests are only tools, and tools can be appropriately used unintentionally misused and intentionally abused. So I mean to say, may mga examinees or students who believe that the test used to measure their learning progress, okay, may not necessarily measure, okay, will never measure their learning progress. The first one. The second one, tests like other tools can be well designed or poorly designed. That's also true. There are most teachers, okay, there's a certain research telling that because most teachers in the higher education, for example, are not really teacher education graduates, okay, and when they immerse themselves into the teaching profession, it may happen that they are not well trained on how to design good test questions. And because test questions are poorly designed, then the scores may not be reliable to conclude that the learners learned something or didn't learn anything. Okay, that's the second reason. Third reason, both poorly designed and well-designed tools in the hands of ill-trained users can be dangerous. Okay? So for example, okay, the designers or the teachers or even the students answering the question may not be well guided on how they're supposed to answer the test items. And because they are not well they are not well oriented, okay, well trained on the use of these tools to measure their learning progress, then certainly the result may not clearly conclude, okay, that learners have learned something from the class. Okay. Now, what is a Nand test? What do we mean by Nand test? It is a device that does not force students to give their responses. So anything that we use in class that will not force students to give their responses, then that is what we mean by Nand test. It is usually based on teachers' direct observation as students perform the assigned tasks. For example, while you are doing your cooperative learning activities, the teacher is observing each one of you on how you participate in the said activity. So maybe say that's an example of a Nand test. Even anecdotal records where teachers would just list down his or her observation about the attitudes of his or her learners while doing the activity, while attending the class, while listening to classroom lectures or discussion, then these observations are examples of Nand test. Okay, for example, in our video conference now, kapag nakita ko halimbawa na I am giving you the opportunity, for example, to ask clarificatory questions or to provide statements to further our discussion or to further our knowledge as regards the topic. And I observe that there are some of you, for example, there's one from you, okay, who never have participated in this opportunity. Or when asked a question, suddenly nawawala yung connection niya. Okay, for example, observe ko yung mga yon. And I'll take note of this. That may be interpreted as the student is not interested to learn. The student is a passive learner. So kung mag-compute ako later ng grade ninyo, sabihin ko na, okay, for example, bagsak ka. So kung bagsak siya, halimbawa, ang score niya bagsak siya, then sabihin ko na maybe, this observation ko naman, hindi naman siya ganun ka-interesado sa klase. So meaning to say, the student deserves this grade because anyway, he has shown that he's no longer that he's disinterested or he's no longer interested with the discussion. Nagla-log in lang siya, pumapasok na siya conference room, pero hindi naman nagpapakita ng eagerness to help himself learn. Okay? So that is an example of a Nand test because you are not required to do such behavior, but the teacher observing you because the observations that we will be looking into may affect the way we compute your grades as you have exerted effort in earning such grade. Okay, that's a Nand test. If it is used to supplement the information gathered through the use of tests, then the teacher can have a comprehensive view of the quality of student learning progress. For example, Ms. Razlin asked a question a while back. Then that would mean because Razlin asked a question, then I might interpret that I might interpret that saying that Razlin is interested to learn, and Razlin is really learning because he would like to clarify his own understanding as regards the concept. And that is a good information. That is a good Nand test for me later to support my decision whether Razlin will deserve the final grade he will be earning, or he does not deserve the final grade he will be earning from this course. Okay, so these are examples of Nand test. Now, examples of Nand test. Again, anecdotal record, yung observation ko. Okay, if I'll record it, yung mga nakikita ko sa inyo ngayon, okay, those are things na pwede ko mai-record at pwede ko maging basehan later, okay, whether to conclude that you deserve the grade or you do not deserve the grade. Anecdotal record focuses only on the unique experience showing an attitude that needs some modification or intervention. For example, nakikita ko na kapag merong opportunity for you to clarify or to ask questions, tapos wala nagtatanong sa inyo, wala man lang nagdadagdag, okay, that will serve as my basis that I have to do something next time to extract, okay, my students' understanding as regards the lecture or as regards to the presentation. For example, later, na napapansin ko halimbawa na naisulat ko o nai-record ko sa aking logbook o sa aking anecdotal record later na itong si halimbawa, itong si Joanna for example, itong si Joanna lagi na lang siyang nagre-request ng special assessment. Lagi siyang merong dahilan. Okay, para lagi siyang merong dahilan na hindi niya kinukuha on the supposed time or hindi niya complete on the supposed time yung quiz or yung learning task. Lagi nagre-request ng special assessment task. Okay? Now with that, okay, pwede ko mag-investiga kung bakit. Okay, tapos na-discover ko pala later na bakit kaya every time na, for example, noong una, finalo niya yung schedule, tapos nakakuha siya ng halimbawa ng hindi perfect na score. Pero nung lagi siya nagre-request na lang ng special assessment outside the supposed schedule, lagi niya na-perfect yung score niya doon sa activity, doon sa learning task. Then, that may mean na baka merong ginagawang kabalaghan itong si Joanna, kaya nagpa-perfect niya, kaya nagre-request siya ng special assessment or outside the supposed schedule of taking the test. And that is what we mean by anecdotal record. And this has to change. There has to be a modification of this behavior. Another example is checklist. A list of objectives that students need to master. For example, gagawa ko ng checklist ngayon. So, habang tinatalakay ko, nagtatanong ako, at nagbibigay ko ng ideya ninyo, i-check ko kung talaga bang tama yung mga sagot ninyo, kung talaga ba namimit ninyo yung learning outcome or hindi. That is what we mean by checklist. Daily assignment, reinforce learning at home or even in school during vacant periods. For example, the last time that we meet, I asked you, for example, to watch the videos, okay? At kapag nakikita ko, for example, sa YouTube channel ko, no, kina-check ko kung ilan ang views nung na-upload ko na videos. Kapag may nakikita ako na halimbawa na increasing yung views ng iyon, tapos makikita ko kung sino yung mga nag-review ng mga YouTube owners o Gmail owners, makikita ko na kasama kayo doon, then that will give me an idea that, wow, the student is helping himself in his daily assignment, on his daily work to look or be updated with the recorded lessons or even in the LMS. Debates may also be a non-test. Students take opposing positions on the topic and defend their side. For example, I ask you one question, then I have given you the opportunity to react to your classmate's answer and you negated or even you supported, okay, you supported the answer of the statement of your classmate, then that is actually a good non-test assessment that I will consider, especially in giving you or in letting you earn a score. Demonstration, when I ask you to show us how things are to be done, that is a non-test. Students present a visual enactment of a particular skill or activity. And of course, games. Students engage themselves in enjoyable activities without fear of being tested. For example, there's an activity that you would just be asked to complete the activity as if you are in a game show, but no scores to be involved, no points to be involved, but you are just asked to participate, then that can also be an example of a non-test. Okay? Journal is also a non-test. For example, if I would ask you to write and do a learning log, okay, a daily learning diary, a learning diary or a learning log of one statement now of what you have learned, okay, that is already an example of a non-test. Okay, yung mga oral and written reports, for example, when I ask questions, you answer, okay, or you volunteer yourself to add something to the information I provided. That is an example of oral reports or oral non-test. Or even written reports, okay? I ask you, for example, to fill out a piece of paper to complete a certain prompt or a certain unfinished sentence. You complete that, and that is already a written report, which is also an example of a non-test. Panel discussion, okay? When a group verbally present, should I say, information obtained through research or library works. For example, when you would be asked to do sharing of researches that you have read as regards the topic, okay, that you as a team okay, were left alone to do that discussion, then that is a panel discussion. Portfolio of student work, collection of your works, of your outputs, these are also evidence that would allow you to reflect upon your own learning. Then projects also, students work on a project in their own creative way, and teacher observation. Teachers observe while students work on assigned tasks. These are all examples of non-tests. Okay, Now, before we proceed to the opportunity for you to ask questions, now with the definition of test and non-test, what do we mean by testing now? Testing is the process of administering a test to an individual or a group of students. For example, the quiz that you took, okay, the entrance exam that you took in USL, these are examples of testing. This process involves steps such as test preparation. So I prepared the test, I administered the test, I collected the test, automatically the test scores are collected through the LMS, and these are what we mean by testing. Okay, so testing is the process of taking the test. Okay, but there are two types of testing, a test and a non-test. Non-test is not required for all students to do, but a test is a required learning process to be done to measure student learning progress. Okay, so before we proceed to the next slide on measurement, may we have an open forum for clarificatory questions or supplement ideas.
Sir, may ano po.
Yes, Princess.
Yung sa test po, sir, is it okay to say, sir, na yung result po ng test determines the performance of the students, pati yung teacher. Kasi nga po sabi niyo po kanina na once the students fail, meaning yung teacher din, fail din siya to, parang nag-fail din siya na gamitin yung proper teaching strategy and proper test po, ganun.
That's perfectly said, Princess. The test does not only measure student learning, but it also measures whether teachers are effective, okay, when they have discussed the lesson. Okay, kaya nga sabi natin, the result of the test, okay, has to be analyzed, has to be interpreted, so that we would know whether we need to organize another learning opportunity for our students to relearn the things we have taught them, or we proceed to the next lesson because the test would tell us that the students have understood the previous lesson, hence our movement towards the next lesson. Okay, so that's perfectly said, Princess. That is right. The test should not only be used to improve the way our students learn, but the result of the test should also be used to improve the way we teach our learners. Okay, thank you, Princess, for that realization. Okay, any more?
Sir?
Yes, Jennifer?
Sir, so parang reflection ko lang dun sa non-test and test na for me, it is more important to use the non-test, sir. Kasi based on your excuse me, sir. Based on your explanation, sir, na more on observation po siya. Kasi kapag test, sir, more on questions, which is parang ang nakikita lang sa mga sa mga scores nung students dun sa quizzes nila is dun lang, sir. Unlike dun po sa non-test na mas direct po yung pagme-measure nila sa sa may parang performance ng bata. Kasi dun sa learning outcome, sir, mas parang nami-measure nila yung skill nila na wait lang, sir. Nag-e-echo. Dun sa nila, sir, sa may non-test kasi, sir, ulitin ko na lang. Po kasi siya, parang mas direct po kasi yung pagme-measure niya dun sa ability ng estudyante. Then, dun sa learning outcomes po nila that are skillful and difficult to measure with tests, parang mas makaka-provide sila ng accurate results.
Yeah, that's also a good realization. But do you agree with the statement of Dulin that it's more important of Jennifer? Do you agree with the statement of Jennifer? Though I also agree partly with what she said. But do you agree now? I'm asking the question to the class. Do you agree with her statement that it's more important to make use of the non-test than the test in assessing students' learning progress? Anyone? You also consider the previous statement I had mentioned a while back of how do we define outcomes-based education, particularly on the evolving concept of assessment using the outcomes-based education. That will be a reference to negate or even to support the statement of Jennifer saying that non-tests are more important to be used or to be utilized to check students' learning progress over the use of tests.
Sir,
Yes, Shantana.
Sir, I think both are important because, sir, di ba test is, sir, nag-deal siya with the three domains of learning.
Yes.
So, I think, sir, yung test, tinatakal niya yung cognitive ability ng students while yung non-test is affective and psychomotor, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with Shantana also. So as we have said in the, though I'm not saying, I'm not saying, Jennifer, that you're wrong. No, I'm not saying that. It's just a matter of, yeah, I also like the idea that you're presenting to us, but we also have to refer back from our previous discussion as regards outcomes-based education. As we have said, it's an evolving concept, right? Shantana is right when she said that, sir, because tests would only measure the cognitive ability or the cognitive domain of learning, okay, of our students. But looking at non-tests now, Shantana is telling us, class, that looking at non-tests now, it means to say, sir, that these non-tests would actually help us measure, okay, the other domains of learning, particularly the skills and even the affective domain or the psychomotor and affective domains of our learners. I perfectly agree with Shantana, okay? But it doesn't mean that I disagree with the statement of Jennifer. It's just that Jennifer's statement should also be considered because there are some teachers who would just make use of tests and will not make use of non-tests. So we need to say our realization now is in the outcomes-based education, these tests and non-tests have to be used in balance, have to be used together so that we could have a whole picture of how we measure our students' learning progress in the three domains of learning. Oh, thank you. That's a good discussion. No? Thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that out. And thank you also, Shantana, for clarifying the idea or clarifying the statements. Okay, that's good. Any more question? Yes, Mar?
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, Mar?
Yeah, no more to negate or to support the non-test and tests kasi both are important naman. So I think Jennifer has realized it, kung ano yung importance niya. But just to narrate some experience we had the previous semesters with our teachers. So no need to mention the teachers or the teacher.
You should not mention.
Yeah, I should not. Yeah, the statement a while ago by Sir Herbert na it is dangerous na magpa-test ka na hindi mo diniscuss.
Correct.
And doon kami nagulat last mga previous semester na what? Ba't na kami exam pa to and nag-review kami well ng mga module na yun talaga in-review namin. But in the test, iba ang concept. Iba yung lumabas. So, I think one of our preparations now na make sure na make sure natin yung outcome, dapat tugma siya sa ating objectives na diniscuss natin para hindi magulat yung mga estudyante. Yeah. And siyempre, do not repeat the history now. So, let's move on and let's learn from it. I learned from it and we have learned from it. Thank you, sir.
That's perfectly said, Mar. And that is a clear example of a measurement error. Okay, that we mentioned a while back. Mar's sharing is a perfect example of measurement error. Yes, Joshua. Thank you, Mar. Joshua?
Sir, yung non-test po, sir, di ba? Example yun is yung palaging nagpa-parasite yung teacher.
Yes, that's true.
Sir,
that's
and then, sir, may tanong pa ako. Sir, pwede yung non-test, sir, pwede, yung non-test, pwede rin po ba i-apply sa outside of the classroom?
Outside of the classroom?
For
yes.
example, sir, yung nakasalubong niya yung teacher, nakasalubong yung estudyante niya. For example, siyempre, mag-greet siya. Siyempre, ma-analyze yung teacher na yung bata ay magalang, sir, ganun, sir.
Yeah, that's an example of non-test. Everything that you observe as regards the behavior of your student, whether they are in the formal classroom or not, or even outside the classroom, these are examples of non-test. Even if, for example, the student will do conversation with you through PM or through Messenger or even through any means. the way the student will communicate with you, will send you messages, all the behaviors that you are manifesting, and if these are recorded and these are observed by the teacher, these are examples of non-test. Okay? Kaya kayo, careful din kayo kung paano kayo sumagot sa mga teachers ninyo, kung paano kayo magtanong sa mga teachers ninyo, careful din kayo kung paano kayo mag-email sa teacher ninyo, because these are all things na pwedeng maobserbahan ka at pwedeng consider ni teacher when he will conclude or when he will finalize, okay, the grades or your final grades in the set course. I remember one time, di ba sa amin kasi sa St. Louis, kapag nag-grade kami ng mga estudyante, kapag kinocompute na namin grade ng mga estudyante namin, kapag 73, for example, ang final grade ng bata, we have the power as part of the academic freedom of teachers to convert that 73 to either 70 or 75. 75 is passing, 70 is failing mark. Okay, pero nasa kamay namin, for example, 71 siya, 72. So 71 up to 74, nasa kamay ng teacher kung gagawin niyang 75 o gagawin niyang 70 yung final grade ng estudyante. And usually, the non-tests, okay, the different non-tests will serve as the deciding factor of the teacher to give 75 or 70 to a student. Okay, for example, in my experience before, I have these two students in humanities. Okay, before. One got 73, the other one got 72. So it's really now, I have to decide really, okay, kung ano yung bibigay ko na final grade ng dalawa. Now, the other one, okay, yung isa, yung 73, yung isa 72, yung 73 ang grade, na compute ko, yung 73, ito yung estudyante na laging nag-a-absent sa klase. Okay. Tapos meron pang instance noon na nakita ko siya na nag-cheat. Tapos yung isa, 72, laging pumapasok sa klase, laging punctual sa klase, kahit na nag-cheat ang marami niyang katabi, never siya nag-cheat. Okay? So I decided that the one who got 72 will be given 75, and the one who got 73 will be given 70. So sometimes, or most often, the non-tests will serve as a deciding factor of the teacher whether to provide a passing or failing grade to a student. Okay? Kaya yung sabi ko nga, careful din kayo sa pakikisalamuhan ninyo sa teacher ninyo, okay, sa paraan na pag-communicate ninyo sa teacher ninyo, because whether we like it or not, okay, these non-tests may certainly affect the way your teachers decide of what grade will be given to you as you have earned it. Okay? Any more question? Thank you, Joshua, for that question also. Yes, Jude.
Sir, sir, for example, sir, yung mga essays poster we considered examples of
Jude, the microphone is not here. Okay, see.
Hello, sir.
Okay na.
Sir,
yes, Jude?
okay na po, sir.
Okay na.
Sir, sir, yung sa mga activities like essays, paggawa ng slogan and poster, like, and then yung mga role playing is considered sila sir na non-test sila, sir?
Kung non-test sila or hindi. Okay, yung mga essays and others. These are considered as non-tests because they are formative types of assessment. These are activities in preparation for the summative tests. And when we say summative tests, these are tests. When we say formative assessment, those activities in preparation for the tests, okay, are called non-tests. Okay? So ibig sabihin, that's a good question. Ibig sabihin, okay? Ibig sabihin, yung tinatawag nating non-test at test ay hindi ibig sabihin na test siya kapag merong scoring. Okay? Hindi yun ang measurement natin. Test siya kung ito will culminate the understanding of the students or will measure the academic performance of the student after providing different learning activities and different teaching activities. The learning activities that we do in preparation for the summative test or the test itself are called formative assessment. Hence, they form part of the Nand tests. Okay? Clear, Jude?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you also for asking that question because that is very important. So for you to be able to identify what Nand tests are and what tests are. Okay? Thank you, Jude, for that very good question. Yes, Dayan.
Sir, in connection po dun sa tanong ni Jude, sir. So, ibig sabihin po yung non-test is okay lang din po siya na kahit nag-gradean po siya?
Yes. In the Philippine setting kasi, we are grading formative tests. Tama? Formative assessments. But actually, ideally, it should not be graded. Parang nabanggit ko na dati sa inyo noon. It should not be graded yung formative assessment. Any formative assessment or any activity in preparation for a bigger test or a big assessment should not be graded because these are merely used to prepare learners for that. Pero in the Philippine setting, in the Philippine context, okay, Dayan, in the Philippine context, we have to measure, we have to assign score to these activities because we are used to it. Because that's the only way to motivate our students to do the tasks. Kasi pag walang scoring, certainly our students will not be motivated to do it. Okay? Again, ideally, formative assessment activities are not supposed to be graded. Okay? Because these are activities to prepare our learners for the summative tests or summative assessment. But unfortunately, in the Philippines, scoring the formative learning tasks of our students are necessary because this is the only way to motivate them complete the learning tasks. Okay? Dayan?
Okay po, sir.
Okay, good. That's also a good question, Dayan. Any more?
Sir,
Yes, and
sir, is it right to say then na yung test po is objective type and yung non-test is subjective?
Okay, that will also boil down to our discussion later, Shantana, of the different forms of assessment. Tests may not necessarily be objective because there are other types of tests. Later we will discuss that because there are different types of tests. We have summative tests, highly interpretative tests, objective test types, and others. Okay, marami pa mga iba't ibang klase ng mga pagtatasa o marami iba't ibang klase pa ng pagsusulit na kailangan natin matutunan sa ating kurso. So we will be learning all of this. Even assessment has different forms. Okay, we will be learning all of those later. Okay, Shantana? Okay. Any more? None. Okay then. So we continue our discussion. We proceed to the second concept, and that is about measurement. Okay. May we now proceed to the second big concept, and that is measurement, with the key idea, quantifying test results. Now, what is measurement? It begins when the teacher compares students' responses with the presumably correct responses in the scoring key. Okay? In the scoring key. If you assign scores to a test and non-tests, then this is what we mean now as measurement. Because when we say measurement, it's about assigning quantitative measure or quantitative score to a learning performance or academic performance of a student. A raw score in the test has no meaning. So yung raw score, walang ibig sabihin yan. But if the number of correct responses the child or the student got in a test is 9, and his score is 9, a student's score in a test has a meaning if the ratio of the score to the total number of items is obtained. For example, 9 out of 9 ang nakuha ng bata. That's the ratio. 9 is to 9. So, how should we interpret that? the student have understood every concept being tested in the said tests or in the said non-tests. Okay? So this is what we mean by measurement. The quantity obtained in measurement is further analyzed to determine whether an individual's performance meets the preset criteria. This is what we mean by criterion reference. Dito pumapasok yung tinatawag natin, yung tanong nyo kanina na, sir, bakit ini-scorean yung mga non-tests? Okay, bakit ini-scorean yung mga non-tests? Okay, the non-test can be assigned a score if we have clear criteria or success indicators, okay, to check whether there's an attainment of the supposed learning outcome or not. Or how the individual's performance compared with the performance of other members of the class. That is what we mean by norm reference test, a norm reference measurement. Okay? Criterion reference measurement siya if we check the student's performance in a test or in a non-test based on the pre-identified success indicators. Okay? Norm reference measurement siya if we compare students' academic performance, okay, with their classmates' performance. For example, in an essay, for example, I will make use to score or to check whether my students understood the lesson through their essay pieces or essay papers. Okay, I'll check the content of their essay based on the following criteria: success indicators, content and relevance of the answer, structure of the essay, whether it has a topic sentence, it has a supporting details and concluding statement, that's structure, and the third is grammar and spelling, for example. So these are the three criteria. And if I will make use of these criteria to check students' understanding of the lesson using their essay writings, then that is what we mean by criterion reference measurement. But if I would say, for example, okay, these are the essay pieces of my students, I'll get the best, for example, I'll read everything, then I'll get the best essay piece, then I'll assign a score to this best essay piece, and that will already be my reference in putting score, assigning score to other essays of other students. Then that is what we mean by norm reference measurement. Okay? Klaro tayo sa measurement. Sige, stop sharing muna tayo. Okay, are we clear with the definition of measurement? What is the keyword again for test and non-test? Can you still remember? What is the keyword for test and non-test? Anyone? What is the keyword? Hello? What is the keyword again for test and non-test? Okay, anyway, it's already 5:50. Okay, now this is what I would like you to do, except for Kiming, Pulintan, Dulin, Shantana, Mora, Joshua, Morgado, Jude Abuan, and Dayan Dayag. Okay, I would like you now to share your learning takeaway from today's conference. I'm giving you 10 minutes to do that. It's 5:50. At 6 o'clock, we will end our conference. Okay, so please make use of the 10 minutes, of the 9 minutes na lang, okay, to type in the chat box your learning takeaway from this conference. That will be your participation activity for today's meeting. Okay, so I'm giving you the time to do that.
Sir, what is the keyword again?
What's the keyword? The keyword for test and non-test is gathering information about the learners. Okay, so that's a keyword for test and non-test. That would sum up the definitions we provided about test and non-test. Okay?
Sir, pag-iulit nga po, sir.
Gathering information about learners is a keyword for test and non-test. Gathering information about learners. Okay, so yeah. Except for those whom I have mentioned, Kiming, Pulintan, Dulin, Shantana, Mora, Joshua, Jude Abuan, and Dayan Dayag. Please share your learning takeaway using the chat box of the Google Meet. That will be your participation score for today's conference.
Hello, sir. Sir, pwede po malaman yung question po, sir?
The question, it's not a question, but it's a prompt. You just have to share a statement to a statement of your learning takeaway as regards the lesson. So what did you learn? Okay, what did you learn from today's video conference? Just one sentence, please. Yes, Kimi.
Okay po, sir. Thank you po.
Except for Kining, Pulintan, Dulin, Shantana, Mora, Joshua, Jude, and Dayan. The others, which were not mentioned, okay, has to share one learning takeaway. When we say learning takeaway, what did you learn from today's video conference? Just one sentence of your learning, okay, using the chat box. Okay, while we are waiting for the others to share their learning takeaway, you might want to ask questions as regards our discussion.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Mark.
Related naman to sa sinasabi natin sa pinag-usapan kanina. Naisip ko lang, during exam, kasi nung before pandemic na may test questions, mga ganun. Tanong ko lang, yung gumagawa ba ng mga questions, parang inulit-ulit lang po, sir? Kumbaga, yung first sem, iba yung test question ng Philippine History, tapos itinuro naman yung Philippine History second sem, so may ibahin lang silang item, gano'n?
Usually what we do is to review the previous test items and to check the current test items vis-a-vis the previous test items vis-a-vis or incongruence with the content being discussed for the current term. Yun ang ginagawa nila. Then sometimes it may happen that the test questions may be reused, or may be reused but will be modified. Okay, that may happen. But of course, kasi when we say kasi objective test types, okay, usually objective test types kasi yan, objective test types are actually crafted for the purpose that it may be repeated or it may be reused. But for essay questions and subjective test types, these are made not to be repeated or not to be used again as a testing tool.
So that's it. So objective can be reused. Tama.
So, but it has to be modified.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sir, may
Sir,
tanong po
yung-
ako.
Yes, Joshua muna tayo. Sige, bago si Teresa. Yes, Joshua?
Ay, sir, di ba yung sa measurement, yung norm criterion ba yun, sir?
Criterion reference and norm reference.
So, dun sa norm reference, sir. So, for example, nag-PSC yung teacher. And then, siyempre may mga teacher, sir, na tamad magbasa ng mga essay, ganun, diba ganun, sir? Kasi, siyempre, sir, alam niyang matalino yung estudyante, siyempre bibigyan niya ng 10.
Yeah, that's what we mean by, yes, I got your point, Joshua. That's what we mean by, that's the pitfall. When I say pitfall, disadvantage of using subjective test types, especially if you're not going to provide a clear rubric on how you are to score students' output. If there's a clear rubric of grading the essay, then that's okay. Pero kung wala kasi siya, then dun lalabas yung pitfall nung the use of subjective test type. Kaya ka tinawag na subjective because the scoring without the rubric will really depend, should I say, on the taste of the teacher itself or himself or herself. Okay, nakadepende dun sa taste niya kung sinong pinakamagaling, blah, 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 and others. So kapag gano'n na mangyari at walang rubric, magiging norm reference yung testing niya at napaka-subjective, which is against the use of outcomes-based education. Kasi sabi natin dun sa outcomes-based education, sa evolving concept, sabi natin sa first, it has to be objectively, di ba? Sabi natin, teachers must objectively look into possible ways on how to concretize student achievement of learning outcome. Talaga yan ang problema pag subjective test types. Kaya kailangan lagi merong rubric. Kaya pumasok yung rubric in the 21st century teaching and learning to objectively quantify students' performance in subjective tests or other types of tests and non-tests. Okay, Joshua, thank you for that good question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any more? Yeah, it's already 6. So may we end our discussion then. And again, thank you so much for your engagement in our discussion because you didn't fail to listen and you didn't fail to provide or ask sensible questions or relevant questions towards a clearer understanding of today's topic. I hope you keep doing that, okay, in the succeeding conferences that we will be doing in our course. Again, thank you so much for making yourself available, okay, for today's video conference. And for that, may we listen to Kay Angelique Hernandez to lead us the closing prayer. Okay? Okay. Kay is not responding. May we then listen to Crystal. Crystal, for the prayer, please. Thank you, Crystal.
Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was, it is now, and will be forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, thank you so much for your participation and engagement in today's video conference. Keep doing that because if you keep doing that, okay, that is an example of a non-test and may certainly, okay, be a good reference, okay, for you to earn a good grade in this subject. Again, thank you and have a nice night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Opo.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.